Alrighty, Anthony. So, apologies for getting this video to you late. I know also we're going to be working a little bit tomorrow on this. So, um, hopefully before your lesson, you take a look at this video just to kind of see where we're going. Obviously, you got your swing on the top, and I got Mike Trout's on the bottom, and we're going to take a look at both of them and kind of compare and see kind of the things that we're trying to get to eventually. So, I'm going to let them both play. All right. So, first things first, right? The very first thing I want you to take a look at is Trout's stance, right? Understandably, this is Trout in his motion of, in his load motion, right? If we take a look at our load motion, right, notice we don't really have a load motion, right? This is something I want to work on tomorrow, and this is going to be kind of the big thing because understand, Anthony, you're a kid that has power, right? And right now we're not really using the power, right? Think about it like that, and even so, boxing, right? If we were to take a dive into boxing, right? If we were to just kind of stand straight on and just, try to throw out a punch, right? We're not going to get as much power as versus, staying grounded and obviously working into our punch, right? That is what I want you to kind of think of whenever we're taking a look at, hitting. Watch Trout swing right here, right? We get into this load. We get to staying connected. We get some extension with our lead foot. And then we get into this power position here that whenever we meet the baseball, that is where, we're able to then extend out like this, right? If you take a look at your swing right here, right? First thing I want you to see is this back elbow right here, okay? So this back elbow is going forward, right? Which is causing our hands to go forward, which is causing our bat to meet the baseball, if I were to draw a line right here, right? Which is causing the ball to go opposite field, obviously, right? So what I want you to think of and what we'll continue to work on is keeping this back elbow connected to our body. Watch how Trout's back elbow stays connected right here, right? Trout stays connected to this point. Once he meets the baseball, then he disconnects into extension, right? So that's one thing, okay? Second thing, I want you to take a look at your hands real quick, right? Your first movement is down, right? So notice if we were to take a look at Trout's, right? Trout has his peak and he's loading into a swing and then going to the baseball, right? Notice your very first movement is down, right? So what that's going to cause you to do is either one of two things. Number one, if I were to get rid of this real quick, either to chop down at the baseball or to come up and skide the baseball. So a couple things to notate there too. Another big one that I want you to see is take a look at your lower half here. If I were to circle your lower half, right? Notice we don't really move it, right? Notice our body wants to get into it, right? Our hips know we have to go this way in order to gain some power, right? And they kind of stop right there, right? So what I want to work on with you tomorrow is really working into our lower half, because I think if we honestly get the lower half working, I think the upper half's really going to be able to work through itself. And obviously, I could be wrong on that. There's some kids it does work for, some kids it doesn't. And that's the beauty of being an instructor, is that not everything works for kids, and especially athletes. And you have to find a new way, right? So, obviously, there's quite a lot to see in this video. And also another thing, right? If you notice our wrist, take a look at Trout's wrist right here. Trout has a very firm, strong wrist, right? He doesn't snap it. He just goes through to the baseball. Versus what we see here, right here, we're having to snap around the baseball. And that's kind of the reason right now why you're able to get the bat squared to the ball right now, is because we're having to flick our wrist. The problem with flicking our wrist is that we lose power in our swing, right? Because think about it. We're building... Actually, let me go into another boxing, term, or rather a boxing metaphor, right? If I were to throw a punch, right, and if I were to, keep my wrist firm, and then at the last second I kind of flick my wrist down, I'm going to lose power in my punch, right? So, with that being said, I want you to think just like in boxing where we have to have a firm wrist. Obviously, we don't want to be tensed up, right? because you're not going to be able to generate as much power, as much momentum, as much whip action, rather when you're firm but you're loose, right? And obviously, you know, with your experience in boxing, that's something that I want you to kind of to work through and kind of to start seeing the correlation between the two. You know, while yes, they're two very different aspects, at the end of the day, they do have some similarities in their swing. So I know, you know, obviously I don't want to overload you in this video, but these are just a couple things that, you know, I want you to kind of see in this video where we're kind of going to. But that's at least a good starting point to where I really think we can get a better swing at the end of the day. Is obviously working into our lower half, getting a load, keeping our hands at our peak, and then obviously letting our upper half work, right? So I know that's a lot of information, especially, but, you know, obviously don't want to overload you. And we'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow as well during a lesson. So obviously, you know, feel free tomorrow to ask me any questions from this video. And if something doesn't make sense, please feel free to ask. So see you tomorrow.